Hi everyone, my name is Joy Leinenbach and I am coming to you today not as Children's Ministry Coordinator but as the Apple Pie Chairperson for the UMW Pie Sale. And as many of you know from reading the weekly update, we are not doing the pie sale this year, which is the first time in 22 years that I have not been making all of those apple pies. So for all of you who are missing the apple pies, I missed making them this year, and with having the community with all of the people down in the kitchen. So what I decided to do instead was to do some quick videos showing you how you can make your own apple pies at home so that you can enjoy that made from scratch apple pie at your holiday dessert table. So in the email, there should be a link that's going to give you the recipes for the pie crust and for the apple pie filling. And then there'll be a couple of videos that are showing how to make the crust, how to make the filling, and put the pie all together. So let's go ahead and get started. This video is mainly about making the pie crust. So you need a big bowl, some flour, sugar, salt, baking powder, an egg, some apple cider vinegar, and some water. So the first thing that you do is you have to measure out 4 cups of flour. Now, for many people, they don't know the trick that when you're measuring flour, you don't want to pack it. So you don't want to put, this is my 1 cup measuring cup, you don't want to put that in and like tap it or do anything like that, because then that makes more flour go into the measuring cup, which then you end up with having more than a cup of flour added, and that's going to make for a really dry pie dough. So you want to scoop it with 1 scoop and put it in there and then level it off. And so because I like talking, and when I'm with either my family's at home or I'm doing this with friends at church, I put the scoops here. My daughter is videotaping me. Annalise, move forward just a little so that they can see in the bowl that I put the scoops, I separate them out so that you can see that I can tell that I've already measured 3 cups of flour. And so that way if the phone rings or if somebody comes to the door or I get distracted, I can easily count how many cups of flour I've already measured. So I've got my 1 cup of flour. Now I need 1 tablespoon of sugar. You can't pack sugar, so that it's all right. 2 teaspoons of salt. You don't want to measure the salt over the bowl, because if it overflows, you don't want to have that extra salt in your pie crust. That would not taste good. So there's 2 teaspoons of salt and a ½ teaspoon of baking powder. Okay, so I've got that all in there. So now I just use my pastry blender and I just mix that all around. Okay, so now I want to add 1 3/4 cup shortening. To speed things up, I already measured 1 cup of shortening. If you don't have a pastry blender, then you could use a knife or a fork to stir that around. So I'm going to put in, here's 1 cup of shortening, and now I need another 3/4 cup. So I like using this tool because I don't have to scrape it out of the measuring cup, but you could always use just a regular measuring cup to measure your shortening. Another trick that I learned from somebody once was to put in a cup of water into a big bowl and then just keep adding shortening to the bowl until the bowl has risen 1 3/4 cup, and that means you've put in that amount of shortening. I didn't want to have to deal with all that extra water, so, because then you'd have to drain the water off. But that's just another trick I've heard from somebody. All right, so I need a little bit more smushing on that side. All right. So that's my other 3/4 cup. So there I've got my shortening in. So now you need to, so you can either use 2 knives, working them together to cut your shortening into your flour, or a pastry blender. So you just, all the little blades on the pastry blender, just break the shortening up and mix everything all together, so that you want to do it until it's all combined. No more big clumps of shortening in your dry ingredients. So you can see that and I just spin the bowl around. All right, that's good. All right, so I'm just going to use this fork here to get it off of the pastry blender. Okay, now we have to add the wet ingredients. So I've already measured a 1/2 cup of water into this liquid measuring cup. I add 1 egg. And a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. And then you just use a fork to mix up the egg. I think the cider vinegar helps the egg break down pretty quick. So now you take that liquid and you pour that into the shortening flour mixture, and then you just use the fork to combine everything. So this recipe makes 5 crusts. So if you're making crumb top apple pie, you could make 5 apple pies with it. If you're making double crust pie, you'd be able to get two double crust pies and 1, so that could be for your pumpkin pie. So now, when I first started making all these pies, I did what I always saw my mother do when she made this pie crust. She would make the balls, and then she would wrap them up in layers of wax paper. And believe it or not, when I first started making the 200 pies for church, I used 200 sheets of wax paper, and I would wrap them up and have each one separate. I quickly learned that I didn't need to do that, and that was a waste of wax paper. So now all I do is I make the balls, and I just put them into a container, and then because it needs to chill for about an hour before you can start using it to roll it out to make your pie. So I just make my pie crust balls, and I put them into a container. I'm just going to put mine into this bowl, and it's about 5 balls per recipe. I think I made these ones a little too big. And then these will harden up, and then they'll be ready to make pie crust. And I'll do another video in a little bit to show you how to get the pie, how to pull the filling together and to roll up the pie dough to make your apple pie. So there's my 5 balls of dough. See, that didn't take very long. Everybody can do this. And then I'm just going to cover up my pie dough and put it in the refrigerator for about an hour. And then in a little while, I'll do another video showing you what comes next. So, happy pie crust making. Bye.